Live at Onigashima. I'm Jimmy.
And I'm Anthony, and today we got a very special video for y'all. This is our 100 sub special, and you probably saw the title of the video already, but we're doing today, what if each of the emperors in the new world, the new emperors, were put into the Straw Hat's position on Egghead Island. So there's a lot of kind of ground rules we have to go over. It's like how would they fare, right? Like would they get off the island? Would they say Vegapunk? You know, we're gonna get into it with each of the Emperor crews. Obviously we got Cross Guild, so Buggy and his crew. We got Shanks and his crew, obviously, and then we got the Blackbeard Pirates. So you know, those are the three that we're gonna be talking about today, and we're gonna see if any of them are able to you know, pull off what the Straw Hats did. Let's see how they fare.
Let's see if they're as good as the Straw Hats. I think a good place to start is with Cross Guild.
Yeah.
Just because I think they're gonna have the hardest time because they don't have a lot of heavy hitters. I think one of the big benefits of all other three crews is that they have a lot of strong opponents, while Cross Guild really only has Mihawk. And like, yeah, you could say Crocodile is kind of a heavy hitter also, but we haven't really seen him do anything post time skip, so we don't really know a good way to scale him. So I think in terms of versatility, we can give him like some leeway, but in terms of just like strength and like hockey, I don't think it's necessarily fair to say, oh,
but he is like one of their
level.
top guys, you know, like he's up there. Like
Yeah.
we gotta be able to put him against something. So let's lay some ground rules first about like how this scenario is gonna play out, right? So I think the fair place to start it is that all of like the crew, like all their main crew are available to them, right? So for Cross Guild, we're starting with Buggy, Crocodile, and Mihawk, right? And maybe some of the other core members that you know, because that
like you could throw Alvida in there, you could throw in Mr. 3, but I mean maybe Mr. 3 will be a little bit
One,
helpful, but,
you know,
yeah.
So
they have some firepower, but they're all going to be starting after the day starts, so in the Labo Stratum. So after they're all like, okay, what's happening here? We're stuck up here. We found the traitor, and now Kizaru's coming. So that's going to be their first obstacle, is fighting Kizaru.
Yeah, the first thing that happens is like, you know, Kizaru breaks through, gets Sentomaru, and then immediately comes there. So he'll be the first opponent.
Yeah, every situation, by the way, Sentomaru's getting cooked.
Oh yeah,
he's just gone out of it.
But
Dude's dead.
They're also, we're putting them in a position where the Straw Hats were. So the Straw Hats were up there. You know, they captured York and everything. Lucci's there, Kaku's there. All the Vegapunks are there, and then they also have to get their ship off the island. So the mission is get Vegapunk off the island, and you know, also get your ship off the island and all your crewmates. Like people can't die, you know. I think Bonnie is kind of up in the air. Like they don't have to save Bonnie. She's not like a necessity for all the crews, and I don't think that Cross Guild would necessarily care about Bonnie.
I think the only one that would care would probably be Shanks. I think also Vegapunk is kind of in the same boat, where like, yeah, maybe they want to save him, but I don't necessarily think they need to. Like, I don't think Cross Guild has necessarily a reason to save Vegapunk, but Blackbeard might, just because he wants the information. And then Shanks, I think, might just do it out of the goodness of his heart, but he also might not, because Vegapunk's not his friend. Right. So, but those are kind of the ground rules I think we're all gonna go with. So I think we should just get started right with. I think the big thing is just Kizaru is coming at them. There's really only one person to stop them in Cross Guild, and that's Mihawk, right? Yeah. I think we're both in agreement on that one.
I don't think anybody in Cross Guild, like, what is Crocodile going to do if Kizaru pulls up? Like, nothing. So somebody has to address Kizaru immediately, and it has to be Mihawk for Cross Guild, because there's nobody else that's on his level. I don't know. Obviously, like, we don't know that much about Mihawk, so I can't say for sure that he can take. I'm inclined to think that Mihawk's stronger than Kizaru, but we don't know Mihawk's speed, we don't know his durability. Like, Kizaru came and kicked Luffy out of the Labo Stratum, you know what I mean? But Luffy has crazy durability, as everybody knows, so naturally he tanked it. Would Mihawk be able to? I don't know.
And I don't know for sure either, and I don't think it's fair to say we do know. I think it's relatively fair to sort of scale him to Shanks, because that's always been one of the big fights.
I think like
them.
Up in this level.
So
right.
I think he's strong enough to deal with Kizaru, I think he might be fast enough because he does have to be fast enough to keep up with Shanks. And I think, and maybe you don't want to just assume this, but he probably has pretty good observation hockey because his name is Hawkeye, and I'm pretty sure that refers to his observation hockey ability. And just to keep up with Shanks, he probably needs to be pretty good at it. Obviously, his armament's very good because he has a black blade, which we assume is when you're infusing hockey into your blade. So I think strength and speed, he's got it. That durability one, though, we haven't really seen him take a hit. I don't know how much he can actually take from Kizaru.
Right.
Assuming he's getting hit by Kizaru, though.
Yeah, I think at the bare minimum, like, we could assume that, like, obviously, like we said, Mihawk's the only guy that can deal with it. They start fighting and duking it out. And then pretty much immediately what happens after that is Lucci turns once Kizaru shows up. They bubble Kaku, which we can assume that happens too. And I'm gonna say, like, I don't think that they necessarily have a plan of getting this ship out of there, because the first things that Straw Hats do, I mean, the Vega Force 1 helps them carry their ship a little bit, and we can assume that maybe that happens with the Cross Guild too. And I don't know if we're giving Buggy like all of his men, but I don't think it matters, you know.
I think in order to assume that the Vega Force is going to help Cross Guild, is they also have to then be trying to save Vegapunk.
Yeah.
Where I don't think necessarily all crews have to do this, but in order to get his help, you kind of got to help save
I think
him
Buggy
also.
would say, like, hey, you should help me. Like, I think he would gain the favor of Vegapunk to get out of there, you know, because I don't think they really have another way of getting out of there. Because this is what we're going to talk about with some of the other emperors, that they kind of have, like, fast travel methods of getting out of there, or at least ways to defend the Vega Force 1. Because remember, the Vega Force 1 goes down at some point, and then the only way the Straw Hats really get out of there is Coup de Burst. And so the other, you know,
no one else has got Coup de Burst. They don't have Frankie on their crew.
Right. And the Cross Guild really doesn't, you know, we don't know anything that happens. Like, we can give them the Buggy's thousands of men or whatever, or maybe, I think the one fair thing that maybe we could talk about is Buggy's influence, and I think he would get Vegapunk's favor and get him to help with you know, the Vega Force 1 or whatever. So I think we can assume that Vegapunk is kind of on their side with the whole
and I
ordeal.
agree with that. I think also they would be able to protect Vegapunk from Lucci and Kizaru at first, because while Mihawk is dealing with Kizaru, Crocodile could be putting up like extra sand barriers. Mr. 3 can be putting up some extra whack to help protect everything. Maybe they could even like make pathways with that too. So I think their first hurdle, it might be rough for them, but I think they get there. I think they can get Kizaru, they can get out of the Labo Stratum.
And they're able to bubble Gunkaku too, right? Because he's there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the next part about that is Kizaru does smack Bonnie down to the ground, and I think if they're going to be saving Vegapunk, they kind of have to be saving Bonnie also. So I think now they have to go find Bonnie, which means they're going to end up interacting with Saturn. And that's where it starts getting a little bit scarier for me, because I don't know how much of Buggy's crew will survive just Saturn kind of blowing people's heads off with telekinesis.
Yeah.
Like, maybe some of the main ones, but like, I don't think Mr. 3 can necessarily survive that.
Yeah, and it's like you know, they come down, like, when we meet Saturn, right? And eventually, like, Kizaru comes there and Luffy's there too, and it becomes kind of like this 2v1, but then Sanji shows up, like, Sanji and Frankie are there, right? And Sanji's kind of like on the ally side at that point, like second strongest on the battlefield, able to block a Kizaru kick, which is pretty cool, but he does get like pinned down by you know, Saturn. So I don't know that we're necessarily saying like Croc is as strong as Sanji.
I think if we're highballing Cross Guild, we can say maybe Crocodile isn't gonna like, or maybe he
would have to also be
taking
taking care of Lucci though. Remember, because like Lucci would stand still
because they have
Zoro,
to stay,
and
like,
it's like,
keep somebody behind.
are we even putting Crocodile on Zoro's level? Which I think Zoro like had that fight in the bag, but even then, you know, Lucci's pretty strong, so it might take a whole person or two. Either you leave Mr. 1 and Mr. 3 and maybe a couple others like over there to deal with Lucci, and then Croc gets to be here, or Croc gets left, and then like who do you have left for helping out with Sat? It's just like a bad situation, and like I don't think that Mihawk is necessarily like 2v1ing Kizaru and Saturn, you know what I mean?
Yeah, which also then means if he's not 2v1ing them, like let's say he even beats Kizaru this first time like Luffy did, Kizaru's out of the fight, so now he's dealing with Saturn. We know Kizaru ends up getting back up and then killing Vegapunk, and I don't think while he's 2v1ing he can save Vegapunk there. Which means that the Iron Giant, the Den Mushi inside of it is going to start playing to the world, which means the rest of the Gorosei are on their way.
Yeah, not to mention all the pacifista are here shooting at them. Like, I'm sure they have some defenses, and maybe if Buggy's whole fleet is here and they have tons of numbers that they can, you know, somehow manage the Buster Call and the pacifista along with all this. But I just think this is like, you know, even just the main big bad guy players here on the other side kind of overwhelms Cross Guild. And I think honestly this is where they stop and get taken down.
I agree. I think they might not even make it to the Gorosei part because of, like you said, the pacifista. I think Saturn and Kizaru might just be too much for them. They, like we said at the beginning, don't have a lot of heavy hitters. So I think this is where they get to. They also didn't even have a chance to rescue their ship in this scenario. So sorry, Cross Guild, you got to get a few more members if you want to compete as an emperor.
They're definitely like on the lower tier, the lowest tier, both strength-wise and utility-wise. Like, they just didn't have a way to get the ship out of there. They weren't. But the next ones we're going to talk about is Blackbeard's crew. So Blackbeard, this is an interesting one because I think that Blackbeard would actually fare like very well in this scenario.
Yeah, I agree. I think his crew, especially from what we saw while they were fighting Garp, and right after, they are very versatile with their powers. They have some of the most busted devil fruits. And on top of that, we were saying earlier, so just to start at the beginning again, the fight with Kizaru, I think there's a lot of people in Blackbeard's crew that can at least hold off Kizaru, but let's just use the main one. Let's use Blackbeard himself.
Yeah.
I think he'll be able to at least compete. He'll be able to nullify Kizaru's devil fruit so he won't be as slippery. He can create black holes which drag in light also, so he's just like a direct counter in terms of his devil fruit in general. And then dealing with Lucci, I don't think should be a problem for basically any of the rest of his crew.
Not to mention they have Aokiji, right? Like, Kuzan's there. So, like, we don't even have to scale, you know what I mean? Like, Kuzan is stronger than Kizaru, I'm sure.
Yeah, Kuzan can just freeze over everything, create barriers. He can create ice to, like, make reflections to throw Kizaru off. We can also have Shiryu turn people invisible. Well, he can turn himself invisible, at least. So he can get Vegapunk out of there if he needs to. But on top of that, I don't necessarily think they care or need to rescue Vegapunk. Because we were saying earlier, one of the reasons to rescue Vegapunk is to have access to the Vega Force to be able to get their ship off the island. But I think they have Pizarro who can turn into an island.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Pizarro is like a big player here because Pizarro can just pick their ship up and put it in the water, you know what I mean?
We literally saw him doing that in one of the recent chapters. He was just like helping pick up islands.
That's how they
ships,
travel.
Like,
that on top of Van Auger's warp fruit, like, I think they can get people out of there like pretty easily. I think here's my thing with the Blackbeard crew is that they have a ton of utility. Like, they could navigate this whole thing no problem. Like, they actually got in and out of the Egghead scenario.
They were actually here
pretty easily. You know what I mean? And Katarina Devon, like, didn't even do anything. All they did was touch Saturn. Imagine if the situation went on a little longer and they were the prime targets for the Gorosei, how the trickery could work. What if there was a scenario where there's two Saturns and they were like, which one do I shoot?
The Gorosei just blast the real Saturn. Well, one of the things about that, though, is while they can be warping around, we did find out that he can't warp very far. So he can't warp the entire way of the island. No. He said it in this arc. So that it's not going to be like, hey, they go from the Labostratum onto the ship and then they just leave immediately. I think they're going to have to do it in jumps, which means they're probably going to end up interacting with Saturn.
I think also that Kizaru is like really like faster than any of the people on that crew. So I think that he is able to destroy the Vega Force one as well. Like in this scenario, you know what I mean? So I think that they definitely need to like deal with everything, and they need to deal with Saturn, like you're saying.
So now that we're having to deal with Saturn, the big thing Saturn's had were, one, like we said, him being able to blow people's heads off. I think Blackbeard's crew is not really going to be affected by it.
But
maybe there's going to be some people that are like paralyzed. Yeah. At best, but none of them are going to die to it. I think the scarier part for them is the poison. If all of them can dodge Saturn, which to be honest didn't seem that bad for Luffy and co. Like no one really got hit by the poison. It was kind of just there to be scary, but it didn't really do anything, right?
Well,
At least not anyone important.
I'll say this because I kind of want to back up a little bit on Saturn, because Saturn was in a very dominant position before Kuma showed up. So at full power, unless somebody was able to like bypass that initial like wave, and I'm sure Kuzan and maybe Blackbeard could do it, albeit, you know, we don't know if this is a devil fruit power yet, so we don't know how Blackbeard interacts with this guy necessarily. But Kuma came, punched the hell out of Saturn, and that's when everybody was able to kind of like get back up and then start being on him, and that the telekinesis wasn't really working anymore. So if that's like a thing that happens, Bonnie has to be there. And with the Blackbeard Pirates, like, there's one of two ways that it can kind of go from the beginning, where like either they decide, okay, we're gonna help you, Vegapunk, which I don't know why the hell they would do that, or two, like either to trick them to say like, oh, I know, like I would think that Blackbeard like wants Vegapunk's power in some way, you know what I mean? And so maybe he strikes some kind of deal, but I also think it's equally as likely because, you know, we saw when Lafitte was telling Blackbeard when they were in the bar with Kuzan, like, hey man, like we can just like kill this guy, you know? So
Yeah.
I think that maybe though would just like take York, you know?
And besides just taking Vegapunk stuff, like I think they actually do have a legitimate reason to save Bonnie, not out of the kindness of their heart, but because she has a really OP devil fruit, to be honest, and that is what Blackbeard's looking for.
Yeah.
Which is a really morbid way of looking at it, because that implies that he might kill Bonnie or recruit her to the crew. You know, either one.
Mm-hmm.
But either way, I think they're gonna be trying to save Bonnie.
But is it a scenario where he's like, oh, you know, we gotta save Bonnie, so that's who Van Auger's taken? You know what I mean? Like they could be like,
that's true. They could just warp Bonnie out of there immediately.
Right.
In which case, if they
Kuma
are protecting Bonnie, well, I was gonna say if they're protecting Bonnie, then maybe Kuma does still show up and
then
does
maybe
still
Kuma's
help with
verse,
that.
or maybe Kuma's versus them and is like, get off of Bonnie, bam. Like
that's true. So now they have another obstacle to deal with. Although I don't think Kuma's going to be that hard for them to deal with. He's kind of a broken man right now. He was already destroyed by Akainu before this.
Yeah.
So
it's just like other variables. Like things kind of go differently depending on how Blackbeard schemes at the beginning. Like again, they have a lot of utility, and I think that if they play their cards right, they're getting out of this alive, because Pizarro can help them, Van Auger can help them, they're strong, like Kuzan's
not
strong.
to mention, even if like Saturn's like gigantic and it's hard to deal with, like San Juan Wolf is gonna be there, and he can get even bigger than Saturn was,
and he can act as a Vega Force 1 and just take their ship, you know what I mean? Like
exactly, he can literally, he is the Vega Force 1 himself, if not bigger than the Vega Force 1, so he can carry the ship off the island. Pizarro can help carry it off the island. I think they just have a lot of ways. I think it's kind of fair to say maybe Vegapunk still dies to Kizaru while they're dealing with the other people, so maybe that's what makes the Den Mushi go off, and now all the Gorosei are there. So can they escape all 5 Gorosei?
Right, yeah. So that's like kind of the next portion of this is like, if all 5 Gorosei show up, like what are they doing? You know what I mean? Because I don't think it's fair to give them the Iron Giant necessarily, because like that would only show up for Luffy because he is the sun god.
Yeah, I don't think any of these people would have access to the Iron Giant
or the Giant Pirates for that matter. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they wouldn't have the Giant Pirates either. I don't think Blackbeard's crew needs it because of what we said before. Because I think one thing that could cause a problem for them is the giant worm. Just because the giant worm tunnels through the ground, which could do a lot of damage to Pizarro, which we were kind of banking on for a lot of this, that Pizarro would be able to kind of help them escape in a lot of it. I think it's going to be hard for them to kind of get away from the bird also. Like maybe Vasco Shot can be shooting like fireballs at him. But
and the Buster Call, and if they're not flipping the Pacifista either, which I'm sure they did if they have Vegapunk on their side by now, which we're assuming for them to have gotten this far. But, you know, Pizarro's also being affected by, like, all the crap that's on the island. Like, we saw on Hachinosu where they were just, like, fighting, and, like, Vasco Shot was shooting his fire, and Pizarro was like, oh my god, stop, like, it hurts.
Yeah.
So, like, you know.
So he's not, like, invincible to damage just because he's an island either. So that could definitely help them a lot. Now, the other one that I think is going to be really hard for them to deal with is Venus, because he's he's just really fast, and we haven't seen a lot of speed feats from Blackbeard's crew. Like I mean, maybe if we're assuming Kuzan is the same speed as Kizaru or faster than Kizaru,
I don't think
maybe
so,
he
but-
could keep up. Maybe he can help slow the environment to make him slower. But I think he's going to be one of the hardest ones for the Blackbeard Pirates to deal with.
I would say that Kuzan for sure like will help with the general slowing down of things and getting out of there. Like he adds to the utility. Like he has that move Ice Age that we see when we first are introduced to him, where he like freezes over the whole sea, and he can like freeze like and Punk Hazard for that matter. Like half of the island is completely frozen, huge area, and like if he's able to do that here, he could definitely like help them get out. I think
And
that,
he can use that to like freeze the pacifistas too, right? Like all of those 100 or so pacifistas, instant Ice Age, and they're just gone, or at least like incapacitated enough where they can get off the island.
Yeah, it can't be really understated how strong their top tiers are. Like Blackbeard's strong, and I think he would be able to like go toe to toe with maybe Kizaru or whatever, and like maybe Saturn, and you know he would definitely help in those battles, and he has a lot of utility himself with the Quake Fruit. I mean, he would be disrupting everything. But Kuzan especially, like, holy shit, bro! Like that guy is strong. I think that they could get out by the skin of their teeth, just like my only problem with the Blackbeard Pirates getting out. I think they can get onto the water, right?
I agree. I think they can get the ship out there, but they don't have, like you said earlier, they don't have the coup de burst to be able to actually leave the island quickly. They would
on top of
be chased by the Gorosei.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, they used the coup de burst to go from like the top where the clouds were, because they had that whole like cloud machine, to the bottom, and then they got in the water, and then they just were able to like sail off because the Gorosei got sent back to Mary Joie by the Iron Giant, and it's like they don't have that. Like, there's nobody. This is the one thing about this scenario that I think is like really difficult for any of the emperors, is that like you got 5 Gorosei pulled up on you right now, and
an invincible Gorosei.
You don't have like none of them are getting Joy Boys hockey. Like, I'm not giving Joy Boys hockey to Buggy or to Blackbeard.
Why not? Buggy's the go.
Maybe they thinks that Buggy's Joy Boy, bro. But like, you know what I mean? So like they'll get to that point, and they're like, I'm sure like they'll be sailing off, whatever. But at that point, like Pizarro can't like, I mean, I guess Pizarro can like eat them, and then maybe Pizarro dies, or San Juan Wolf is able to like continue to, you know, walk the seafloor and like push them further or whatever. Like that would be the most likely scenario for me, and they just get away from the island. But this would depend on if like they can beat the Gorosei. I would say that like Kuzan and Blackbeard could maybe one each if they were really trying. They'd be pretty exhausted at this point, but you know how Luffy like yeeted the like Mars, so like they took him out at least, you know what I mean?
So I think I agree. I don't think they can get away easily. Definitely not without casualties, because maybe another option for them is San Juan Wolf could stay kind of behind to like help them get off the island, so while they escape he kind of gets taken out and holds them off. I think could be an option. Maybe they do that with like somebody else also, but I think they get out, but not unscathed.
Yeah, by the skin of their teeth, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I think Blackbeard Pirates, they fare pretty well here, and it's tough for them, probably just as tough as it was for the Straw Hats. Yeah, I think we can give them the pass here. I think we'll say that they completed the mission.
I'll say they get a B+ for the mission.
B+. Well, what did the Straw Hats get?
The Straw Hats got an A. They accomplished everything they wanted to.
Yeah.
And then I would say, to go back on it, I think Buggy's crew got an F. They just failed.
They got washed, bro. Poor cross killed. So now we got to talk about Shanks. So this is, we saved the best for last. We know y'all love the red hair wonder, Shanks.
Who doesn't?
Yeah, of course.
But I think this one is one of the harder ones, because kind of just like Cross Guild, we don't know that much about Shanks' crew. We have a little bit now, or a little bit more now than we did before.
Right.
But we really only have like some small feats for Shanks, maybe a small feat for Ben Beckman.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, what do they
Yasop.
do? Take out some mountain bandits? Like, yeah, Yasop blew up a ship recently. So I think the first step, the fighting Kizaru again, I think that's not going to be a problem for them. We have two people that should be on Kizaru's level in Shanks and Ben Beckman.
Right.
Ben Beckman held the gun up to Kizaru, and Kizaru was like, I'm not playing with this right now. And then Shanks, we obviously think he's stronger than Kizaru because of kind of what we said with Mihawk before. We think Mihawk can keep up with him, so can Shanks. Shanks is kind of equal to, if not stronger than a lot of the original Yonko also. So I don't think this first part is hard for them. Same with the
I don't
Rob
think so either. I think one big thing about the red-haired pirates is that they have the top tier. You know what I mean? Like, they have the guy that's on the top of the verse in a lot of people's opinion, right? So they're gonna know, like, to the point where people think that Shanks is like I think that Shanks would just like no diff Kizaru, quite honestly. Like, I think one divine departure and that guy's done. You know what I mean?
Maybe not one, maybe like two.
Yeah.
But either way, I don't think strength is their problem. So it's kind of the opposite of what we saw at Blackbeard, where they have a lack of versatility. They don't really have a lot of good ways to like.
But they have strength.
Move around.
So like, would they even get to the point of, you know, having to fight Saturn? Like, I think that they would be able to protect the Vega Force one and get their ship to the shore. Honestly, like, Shanks could just protect the ship, and whatever comes at them, like, Kizaru's probably gonna be done pretty quick because Ben Beckman and Shanks can just duo, and then I think Lucci would be not that big of a deal because of the other crew members. You know what I mean?
I do think Saturn would still show up just because he's on a ship, but like we said before, I don't think their wills are weak enough where the telekinesis is going to affect them that much. I don't think they're slow enough to get hit by the poison, and I don't really see the other Gorosei showing up because, like we said, they only show up because Vegapunk dies. But I think Shanks' crew is strong enough where they can actually protect Vegapunk and not have him die.
You know, if Kizaru is out early, then it's like Vegapunk
then he can't even kill
Vegapunk. Yeah. So I think that Shanks, you know, even if they can't figure out like how to injure Saturn, like, I don't think one big thing with the whole Bonnie flashback being able to happen and like everybody being pinned down, like we were talking about how Sanji was the second strongest one there. If it's like even just Shanks there, you know what I mean? He's as far as we know, because, you know, like we said, we don't really have that much to go off of Shanks and the red-haired pirates. But would he have that same stamina issue that Luffy did? Because Luffy was just down at that time. Like, if he was able to deal the blow that Kuma did, then maybe they could start going at it with Saturn.
And I don't think Shanks is gonna have that stamina issue, because we know Luffy has that stamina issue because of Gear 5.
Right.
Like, he doesn't normally have the stamina issue when he's in base. And I think Shanks is strong enough in base, because, I mean, obviously he doesn't have a Devil Fruit, that he wouldn't really be fatigued after fighting Kizaru. Maybe a little bit, but not enough to, like, you know, have him go down.
Yeah.
And on top of that, I think one of the things that helps them a lot is, we said before, like, the Elbaf Giants weren't helping Buggy and Blackbeard. I think they legitimately could help Shanks.
Yeah, for sure.
He was literally just on their island. He's friends with them. I think if the same situation where they hear the news and like, oh my god, Shanks is on Egghead close by, I think they would also go help them. So even though I think they're a powerhouse without the Giants, I think they would also get the help of the Giants.
Yeah, they would definitely get the Giants. It's fair to give them the giant pirates, like, and I think that just goes to show, like, you know, maybe Saturn feels that he needs to summon them just because Shanks is so strong. You know what I mean? And there's also the argument that what if Shanks is some kind of royalty, and maybe that guy, you know, he met with the Gorosei, supposedly, like a lot of people are saying that that's Shanks' twin brother, Shanks or whatever. But, you know,
I don't know how much theory we want to go into in this.
I'm just saying, like, there are other like political things that could go on. One other thing I did want to talk about was the fact that I don't necessarily know if this matters, because like we said, they're so strong that maybe the Vega Force One could just like take their ship out. But as far as we know, they don't really have a way of fast travel like how the Straw Hats and the Blackbeard Pirates do. And not necessarily like fast travel, but like, you know, that big Pizarro being able to move the ship, the warp fruit, the coup de burst. I don't know of anything that the Shanks, like the red-haired pirates, have. It's implied that they might have something because of the whole thing that happened at Marineford. Like, they were able to have an
Go
encounter
up out
with
of
Kaido
nowhere.
and then
Yeah.
pop out of nowhere. So it's kind of implied that they do, but like, you know, it's not
And
confirmed.
I also think, well, we did say that we don't think the Gorosei are going to show up to this because they're going to be able to protect Vegapunk. Even if they protect Vegapunk, and I think it's fair to go through this hypothetical, the other Gorosei might show up because Vegapunk is escaping, right? And they're like, oh my god, we know Vegapunk knows about the Void Sentry and this can get out to other people. We still got to stop him even without the message playing. So I think it's fair to say Shanks also still has to fight the rest of the Gorosei. I think that's where it becomes a lot harder for them. I do think they have the firepower where maybe they can have like, I think Shanks can fight one-on-one. I think Ben Beckman can probably fight one-on-one. Yasop can probably start taking out the bird one because he has these long-range attacks that can fend him off. I don't really know about the other people, though. We just don't have a lot of information about the others, so it's kind of hard to say where we're at if they were to go against all 5 of them.
Right.
But I do think they at least have a decent shot of fending them off. It's just like you said, once they fend them off, how long do they have to do that for while they escape on their ship?
Yeah.
Like,
I think it's like a timing thing, you know. Like I think that it's like you said, it depends on like the Gorosei might be called like the rest of them, just because like they don't want Vegapunk to escape or whatever. It might be a case where they're able to just like, you know, slyly get out. It's not like Saturn was patrolling the whole island, you know what I mean? And like they, you know, they have the rest of the vice admirals and stuff around, but what is that gonna do against like Shanks? Like, so my scenario is like, if the Vega Force 1 is just being carried and everybody that we need to stay there just stays there, like all the Vegapunks, like everybody just stays on that, and the plan is like Shanks hold it down, I think they can get out of there no problem, you know what I mean?
yeah, I do think Shanks is going to be able to hold it down. Even if we don't want to give them like the Joy Boy hockey that stopped all of them.
Yeah.
I don't want to say Shanks's hockey is stronger, but in the translations, I mean, we got one that Joy Boy's is stronger, but then we got another translations that it's comparable to Shanks's. Right. So is Shanks's hockey strong enough to just kind of fend them all off anyways?
Yeah.
And maybe that's why the Gorosei even let him talk to them, because they're like, well, shit, we can't really do much anyways to you.
Right. So, like, they might just let him go and not call the 5 Gorosei in that case. You know what I mean? Like, maybe they're just like, ah, shit, that's Shanks. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Can't mess with that guy.
So, I think, overall, I do think Shanks' crew can get out of this. Yeah. I think they're the
Pirates,
boys.
They're the longest established emperors on the sea right now. So
for, like, 2 years, but yeah.
Well, 2 years
like,
longer
or
than
6 years. Sorry.
Yeah. I mean, longer than Blackbeard or Buggy or Luffy have been emperors. I mean, Kaido and Big Mom were gone. You know what I mean? I think bonus rounds would be like maybe Kaido and Big Mom here. They could probably get off. They have like huge crews. I don't know if they're dealing with Gorosei. I don't want to go into all that. Also, like, what if Kid and Law came to Egghead instead of the islands that they went to? I think they're getting fucking washed.
Which we might be able to do all of that in a video together. So if you guys are interested in hearing about that, let us know in the comments. Just to give Shanks a final grade like we gave for everybody, I think he gets an A.
Yeah.
He definitely gets off the island.
A.
I don't think there's really going to be any casualties. Maybe even better than Luffy, because I don't think Vegapunk will die in this case, so maybe an A+ for him.
Yeah. I think they handily save Vegapunk. You know what I mean? This is like, you know, all the memes that were coming out around the time, like, oh my god, like, what if Shanks comes and he's one of the people that shows up on Egghead? What if Dragon comes? But yeah, man, that's I think that's gonna do it for us. That's how each of the emperors would fare on Egghead Island. Let us know if you guys like this kind of video in the comments. This is actually really fun to do. I like these kind of like scenarios, and this was something I don't think that I've heard other people talk about necessarily, but yeah, that's gonna be it.
Let us know if you like it. Let us know if you want to do more. If you have other ideas that you want us to throw in there, like other types of what ifs, maybe we can do that also. But thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe.
I want to say one more thing before we sign off. I just want to say one more thing. Thank you guys so much for 100 subs. We got a little bit more than that now. We've been putting out videos for a while, and you know, slowly but surely it's coming up. So 100 subs is a good benchmark. Thank you guys for watching. It's fun. We're gonna bring you more content. Fight us in
Yeah.
the comments.
Fight us in the comments, you know, the usual. Yeah, just to reiterate, thank you guys. Like, we couldn't be here without you guys, so great job on you guys.
Yeah, great job on you guys. All right, until the next one. Peace.
See ya. Peace.